evidence-based consultant or just safety curious. Get ready for a show that'll educate, entertain, and elevate your safety game. Let's dive into the art of consulting with your safety Sherpa himself, Sheldon Primus.
This episode is powered by Safety FM.
All right, welcome everyone to the podcast. This is Sheldon Primus. This is the podcast where I teach you guys the business of doing safety consulting. I help you with some OSHA compliance stuff. We talk about regular EH&S. And like this week, as you can see on the screen, we've got excellent guests. Jorge Torres is going to be chatting it up with us today, the Bilingual Safety Guy. We're going to talk about his consulting career. You see, this is news to Jorge. I didn't tell him what we're talking about, right? You're just so we're going to get you with a little bit about the safety consulting, and also want to talk to you about your book and the Unburdened 5 Honest Lessons from a Recovering Stress Junkie. That is like an absolute wonderful name. And honestly, I love the book. Thank you for sharing that with me. And everyone, let's just go ahead and welcome Jorge. Yes. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me here, and looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, me too. And why don't you tell us a little bit about truly, how did you get into the business? So go ahead and tell me, how did you get into safety first and then safety consulting?
So into safety, I kind of came into this sideways a little bit. A lot of guys end up in safety from the trades or from, working in the field. I did not. I was a paramedic and had an opportunity to work in large projects through OSEPs and CSEPs on the medical side. So I was on-site paramedic for a while in several large projects. And, kind of working side by side with the safety team, incident investigation, injury investigations. I kind of put two and two together pretty quickly that it's much better to prevent the incident in the first place and treat the injury. That kind of sparked the curiosity, started going down the road of, taking my 10-hour class, 30-hour class, and so on. And now this is back when you could go from the 10 to the 30 to the 500 within, a couple of months. It wasn't that drawn out of a process as it is now. That turned into, hey, let me go to school for this, right? So I got my associate's degree in safety, then I got my bachelor's in safety. Unlike many of us, right? So I always did a little bit of training on the side, a little bit of program help on the side, friends and coworkers, and that little side gig started growing. And it came to a point about, 4 years ago or so, I had an opportunity, or not an opportunity. It came to a point where it was either I drove down this road full time, or I was always going to be scratching my head whether I could do it or not. I was getting enough demand that it was starting to, potentially create a conflict of time. And spoke to the boss, my wife, and we agreed on a path and a time frame and some key points to hit along the way, and went down the road, man. And it's been fantastic. It's been a great experience.
How
Since
long now?
then, total, from starting as a little side gig is probably about 9 years now. Full time, I did it full time for 3.5 years. And I just recently, I'm kind of shifting gears in it, as we were talking about earlier. I've taken a corporate job now, so I'm shifting gears from the program consulting, field consulting, more moving toward the speaking portion of it, which I've always done as well, but focusing more on bringing information out over the program development, program management side of things. So that's where we are today. The Bilingual Safety Guy is always been more of a brand than a business. So that will continue regardless of what iteration the business itself looks like.
Yeah. And we've got similar friends, and we've been around the same circle for a while, and it was great that we connected on Facebook and from your group.
Yeah.
Tell everyone a little bit about your group, you and Alan, and I can't remember the other lady that's with you guys.
Oh,
But
Trish.
Trish with the Facebook group. Tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
the Facebook group.
So it's actually that group's been around for a very long time, and I'm not. I'm one of the admins. We have a group of several admins, probably about 9 of us altogether, plus several moderators. The group is a U.S. safety professionals group on Facebook, and over the years, I was a member for a long time, participating in it. Administrators that were there, they would come and go, and we have people since I joined as an admin that have stepped down or stepped off a little bit. We all get busy, so we understand that. That's why we have such a large group of folks working on that project. But uh, I can't take credit for it. That group's been around far longer than I knew about it. But it's been a really good resource for me. When I was invited to be part of the admin group, that's why I wanted to step into it, because it served me so well. I wanted to make sure that it was there for others, whether they were starting in the field or experience. And our goal is to just have a community of safety professionals based in the U.S. that can support each other with experience, with knowledge, even sometimes personal. We've had situations where people reach out to the admin group saying, "Hey, I have a situation at work that I'm not comfortable bringing up in the group. Can you guys help us out with that?" And we do the best we can as individuals to share that information, or to share our wisdom, whatever little bit we have with them, mainly how we've dealt with that situation in the past. And we refer to other people as well. I think one of the benefits of the group is that we interact with professionals at all levels from all industries across the entire country. So no matter where the individual is coming from, if I don't know the answer, we have thousands of members in the group. So the answer is there somewhere. We just need to go find the right person.
Yeah, and you guys, I was very just happy to be part of that group, because it's been a while since I personally have run a safety program. When I went full time, it kind of took me away. And actually, before I even went full time, I was a plant manager. And then I was also safety officer at the same time. So, I had a little different perspective about it. But just being away from, I have students, like Alan's one of my students in the past, and they give me a lot of perspective about what's really happening. But that group is in real time. And I get to see in real time the struggles, the successes, the questions, and I help out whenever I can when there's OSHA questions. But honestly, I really appreciate the group, and I didn't know that you're a legacy of different moderators through that group. So that's a good understanding for me. Thank you for that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and now tell me about the book. So I did an episode for those listening about just truly making sure that you take care of yourself. Anybody that's drawn to this field has a lot of empathy. We care what we do. We care about the people that we interact with. And if they get hurt or something happens, and God forbid a fatality, it crushes us. So we need to take care of ourselves. And I did an episode about that. Jorge reached out to me and it just said, "Hey, thank you for that episode," and asked if I wanted a copy of his book. He sent it to me. And while I was traveling, he actually sent it to me to one of my mail. I had to find the closest mailbox, post office that I could get it delivered to in Washington State. So when I finally got to the mailbox to pick it up and got to read it on my travels, I was like, yes. You nailed it. You nailed it. It was awesome. I mean, the book Unburdened, 5 Honest Lessons from a Recovering Stress Junkie. You start out by telling us why the book is important. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You got some stories about your son in there. That was pretty awesome. Is he a celebrity now? Are people recognizing him from the book?
It's funny because I asked him if he was okay with me sharing the story. he's an adult now. He's in college, right? And I wanted to make sure that it was okay with him sharing that story, and he was very open to it. He's like, "Look, I'm not the only one that has gone through this. He's a teenager. He's got friends that have gone through similar situations." Um, and to me, like I said, what really surprised me was how open he was to ask for help. With no prompting. I mean, we had been having a few conversations about what he was going through, and we thought, hey, we're good. We had a conversation. He's got a handle on it. He's dealing with it. He's processing it. And the story that I tell in the book is, when he comes out of his room, tears in his eyes, eyes red. Man, as a dad, that does something to you, and it's like, if this kid has the bravery to recognize this on himself and to ask for help, why am I still hiding, right? And that was a big moment for me. But the book comes from, it really stems from my time in the medical field, in emergency services. Anyone that spent any amount of time as a first responder knows that you deal with things that people shouldn't see. But on the flip side, there are a lot of resources available. Many agencies, from police, fire, emergency hospitals. When there are the really bad situations, those organizations have pretty intense and pretty in-depth resources available. Sometimes they're available if you want them. Sometimes they're mandatory. When we had large, multi casualty incidents, the debriefings were mandatory. It wasn't, go when you can. It was, you will have a scheduled appointment and you will go through this process. And that was very beneficial. I mean, it's not that the situation just vanishes from your head, or you forget about it, but you learn how to cope and how to deal with the experience. You learn to contextualize it. You learn to put it into a frame that isn't going to affect you long term. Fast forward years later, I move into a safety environment. Within the first year of making that transition, we have a fatality on site.
Mm.
When I was as a paramedic, I would take the person to the hospital, drop him off, and that was it. That was the last interaction I had. Then I had these resources I could delve into. As a safety professional, we had to respond to the incident. We had the claim that we had to manage. We had, in some cases, depositions, lawsuits, claim reviews, families. So it was a much longer term exposure to the traumatic event, but there was no resources. There was, it was kind of like, hey, this happened and you deal with it. And, it kind of struck me. We're talking back in the, mid 90s, early 2000s. This is before the big explosion in mental health in construction came out. Now that we have these tools in place in the industry, it's much better. However, when this first started, companies looked at safety professionals as the implementers of these mental health initiatives. So now not only were we dealing with the same catastrophes that we were dealing with very little resources allocated for our own benefit, now we also had to manage everyone else's situation, and still no one kind of looking at us to say, you also need to be part of this. You also need to access these resources. And it's gotten better over the years now with the research it seems like every issue of the Safety Professional Journal, Safety and Health magazine, pretty much every issue has something that relates to or speaks to mental health, which is fantastic. We have the resources, people have the ability to engage in them if they want to. What I wanted to do with my book was share from an individual standpoint what worked for me. First of all, how did it affect me as an individual? And I go through that in the book, talking about stacking things up and getting this idea that if I'm not under stress, I'm not being functional, I'm not productive, right? And craving that stress as an indicator of success and engagement. The part that I failed to see was that same engagement was eating away at other parts.
Yeah.
My relationships at home, the way that I showed up for people, the way that I interacted with my peers. And those are things that are very slow progressing. You don't see it at the moment, but eventually they just show up. And if we don't have tools on hand, or we don't have access to tools, then it becomes difficult to get yourself out of it. Maybe because of a combination of what I learned as a first responder, plus the fact that I was engaging in bringing these resources to my employer at the time. I think that maybe gave me some perspective to say, you know what, I think I have a story here that I can share with people on how to use these things.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of times we kind of go on a little tangent here. Where we tend to fail in safety as a profession is we tell people the what, but we don't really tell them the how. This is what you want to get to, but how do we get there? So
Yeah.
we get all these resources for mental health. We plaster them all over the facility. We, share them in every toolbox talk. We share them in every meeting, but we don't really talk about how do you engage with them and why
Yeah.
and when and what the benefit is, right? Just knowing that 988 is there is great. Knowing when to use it is better, right?
Mm.
Knowing why you need it is better.
Yeah.
So I thought, if I've had some experiences that I think could potentially benefit other people, I'm going to put them out there. If it helps someone else, my goal was, if one person gets value out of this book, I've done my job.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to be like a.
I'm the one.
Well, thank you. At no point did I expect to be on the New York Times bestseller list. That wasn't the goal. That's not the intention. The intention is to, share with people that maybe need a little breather, maybe need someone to look at them and say, yeah, look, it's not, we all deal with it. Here are some tools that could potentially make it a little easier for you.
Yeah.
But the primary message that I wanted to put out was that we are not alone. When you have a lot of stuff on you, you feel alone. You can be in a crowded room and you feel alone. And I wanted people to know that no matter what, you are not alone. Right? Just
Excellent.
reach out.
That's awesome. Well, when we come back, I'm gonna see if I could get the 5 steps out of you, so
Yeah.
people will know what to do. So everybody, hang tight. And when we come back, we are going to hear the 5 steps. So hang in there. We'll be right back. Time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and 1 consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
We now return to the Safety Consultant Show. And once again, here's Sheldon Primus.
All right, not just me, but this time we've got a special guest. Hold on, you just blew by this one. The New York Times bestsellers list.
No, I'm not there.
Oh, not there yet?
I'm not there yet. Not even close.
Oh, don't worry. That's preemptive. You're going to get it. So when you get that, remember that applause.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, talk us through your 5 steps. It's okay not to be alone, or okay not to be okay. Excuse me. So let's start with that one. Hold on. Before you start, let me let you know that for me personally, when I was reading through that step with "It's okay not to be okay," I'm a person who does meditate. I'm a person who thinks about mindfulness. I'm a person that remembers to breathe and everything. But then there's like ebbs and flows in consulting. When you get a whole bunch of jobs real good, and then you're like, no one remembers your name, and they're
Yeah.
like, hold on. And after a while, you're like, is it me? What's going on? So in those moments, even me, myself, and what I've done, I'm feeling uh, like I'm missing something, and I'm grounded in the areas I know, meditation and, vagus nerve massages and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And honestly, I still feel kind of like, uh, I have to fake it till I can make it almost, but inside it's like, dude, what's wrong with you? So tell us about that first step. How did you break that down? And for everyone who didn't get the book, not only does it give you steps, but at the end of each book, there's a lesson where you get to write stuff out. So it's like a book/workshop. So it's a little bit of everything, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I think, like any problem solving, right? The first thing is you have to admit the problem. And, it's difficult to overcome stress of any type if you don't first acknowledge that it's affecting you. Um, and I don't want to, and I mentioned this in the book, I don't want to say that stress is overall negative, right? Stress has a place in our life. Stress is what makes us motivated. Stress is what drives us to achieve and succeed. What I'm trying to target with the book is, on unmanaged stress, or unnecessary stress, when stress becomes the enemy and not the motivator. And there's a fine line in that. Sometimes, you feel like you're doing things and you're motivated and you're moving ahead, and then you think, well, I can take a little more, let me add something else, and then I can take a little more and take a little more. It just snowballs to the point where, you feel like you're drowning. And that's the point where that self-reflection, that looking in the mirror and saying, maybe I'm not okay, maybe I need to take a step back, maybe I need to, you know not engage in so much, maybe I need to stop telling everyone by default that I'm okay. We are conditioned to say we're okay regardless. When you think about, when you see someone, you're at work, you see someone for the first time during the day and say, hey, how are you doing? The immediate answer is, I'm good. There's no pause, there's no thought behind it, there's no reflection. It's an automatic response. I'm good, I'm fine, I'm okay. Or, which I think is worse, busy. I'm busy. I'm really busy. I got a lot of stuff on my plate, right? Because we equate busy with productive, and that becomes the fuel that forces us or pushes us to keep adding and stacking. And if we fail to see that, and even worse, if we fail to admit it when it's pointed out to us, which is what happened with me. I'm grateful for the woman that I married, that she has never, held her tongue. When she saw me struggling, she said, something's up, you need to do something. I don't know what it is, but you're not okay.
Wow.
you know,
That
and
is
when
good.
when a 5 foot, yeah, when a 5 foot Mexican tells you that face to face, right in your eye, you got to listen.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and so she's always been a big driver for me. Just being able to admit it, that is a huge step. But that is step number one. So you have to acknowledge that it's okay to not be okay. Nothing wrong with it. Once you know that, once you admit that, then you can start working on it and say, okay, so how do I get back to okay?
Yeah.
Because we don't, we can deal with a lot of stuff for a little bit, but dealing with a lot of stuff for very long doesn't work. Right? Eventually, things just blow up somewhere where you don't want it to blow up. So
Yeah.
that's where step one comes from. Lesson one comes from.
Wow. Now, lesson 2 tells us that it doesn't have to be you, and it doesn't have to be now, because everyone's in their brain that I've got to take care of this and I got to do it right now. And
Yeah.
your tool at the end, I've never heard of the Eisenhower matrix. So tell us a little bit about how that developed for you and how you made the connection for yourself.
Yeah, so that matrix has been around, since the time of Eisenhower. He's the one that kind of came up with it. And I learned of it. One of those things that you take a class in college, business class, and they kind of, hey, there's this thing out there, and you never think about it again. Um, but then once I started thinking about, well, what can I do? One of the biggest things for me, that one of the biggest stressors for me was time management. How do I get a hold of my time? And I read a lot of leadership books and time management books. There's a great book out there. Uh, I'm drawing a blank on the title right now, but it's funny. I'll remember here in a second. But it taught, I learned about time, read books about time management. There's one called the 4 Hour Work Week, which is, it would be fantastic to be able to have a 4 hour work week. But that's one of those books that I read that kind of turned me into thinking about, am I being efficient and effective in managing my time? And I realized that I was not. Um, I can't remember in which book or if it was a professor or somewhere I heard the phrase, if you don't manage your time, someone else will. And that came back to me in force when I was going through this process. So that drew me into, well, what can I do to get a better grasp on my time? And the matrix was one of them because it helps you prioritize things. Not everything is or has to be a hair on fire situation. Some things are just not worth your time. Some things are better managed by others. Some things deserve and demand your time and your skill. And this can apply in everything from professional environment to a personal environment. In the professional world, right? So the more you grow in your leadership roles, the more you tend to take on yourself. Uh, and there's myriad reasons why people do that. Everything from I don't want the competition to I don't think my team is competent enough. So that you have to kind of look at what in your particular situation is driving that. But once you identify it, then you have the ability to say, if I surround myself with the right team, I can delegate correctly. And then my job as a leader is to lead, let them do. At home, right? If you're in a relationship, your partner, your spouse, they're there. You're a team, right? So what are they better at? What are you better at? How do you divide those tasks so that no one is overly burdened, right? No one is drowning in everything while the other person just sitting there watching TV, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Video
so
game.
yeah, playing video games, right? Doing something, playing with the dog, whatever, right? Something other than being helpful. Um, and like I said, that what that matrix does for you is it allows you to prioritize things in a way that makes sense. I think the biggest one for me is it helps you identify your time wasters, the
Mm,
dead scroll, the time in front of a TV,
yeah.
which is these are all fine. These are all okay when they're in small amounts that help you and not hinder you. If you're spending, 8 out of 10 hours flipping or scrolling on your phone, that is not going to be productive for you or anyone else. If you use it as a way to clear your brain between tasks, then that's different. Now it becomes a useful tool. So it's not necessarily the action, it's how you apply it. And what the tool does, what the matrix does, is it helps you quantify it so that then you can decide whether it's a proper use or improper use. So that to me was fantastic. Along with other tools, I found a journaling and calendar paper by hand, non-digital format that I really enjoyed that helped me kind of plan things out. I had to
Yeah.
carry it on my hands. I could refer to it during the day or during the week. There was a
Mm,
reflection session at the end of the chapter every week. So
got mine
it,
right here.
yep. Yeah. So those are fantastic, right? It just helped, and there are so many different tools out there. That's one of the things also that I want to point out in the book is that, it wasn't just about me regurgitating information. I wanted people to come out of the book with some tools, something that they can use and do to help themselves. And that's where the exercises come at the end of the chapter. That's where a lot of the resources, information. There is a link if you do the Kindle. There's a website if you buy the print book where you can go to and download additional resources if you want to, like all those tools at the end of the book, if you want to do them again. you can get copies of it and make as many copies as you want and just, rework it, because every few months the answers are going to change. Right? If you're following the program, or you're following the suggestions, every month your answers should change for the better. Or if
Yeah.
not, you should be able to see whether you're still stuck somewhere that you want to put more attention into. So those are all there and available for anyone that wants to use them.
Excellent. Um, the multitasking is a myth lesson. Was that a hard lesson to learn?
Yeah, that's one of those things that, if we're honest with ourselves, we all know it. And it took a long time for me to come to that honesty and say, you know what, I'm really good at doing a lot of things, or I'm really good at changing things very quickly, which, I learned through my research. It's called microtasking. Um, no one really is good at multitasking as it is defined, right? The textbook definition of multitasking is you're doing multiple things at the same time, which, it's not impossible. Some people can, to a certain point, like, tap your head and scratch your belly at the same time, kind of thing, or chew gum and walk at the same time.
Yeah, I'm a drummer. So we got all our limbs doing something different at the same time.
That's crazy. My son's a musician, right? He plays brass, and yeah, so jazz band, the drum. I don't know how you guys do it. You got 4 different brains. So yeah, there are things that can be multitasked, but the more complex the activity, the harder it becomes to multitask. The more detail driven, the harder it gets, because now, how do you put enough attention into something that requires details while at the same time putting it into another task that requires details? There's a really cool exercise that I've done when I present on this, where, it's 2. One is visual, one is auditory. The visual one, there's a story being told, and I'm sorry, not a story. The visual one is there's words coming up on the screen in different colors, and at the end it asks, which words were in purple, which words were in pink, something like that. So visually, you have to try to separate. You're trying to keep track of 2 streams of information at the same time. No one ever gets it. The auditory one is, it's best done if you have headphones, but you put it on, and there are 2 stories being told simultaneously. And then at the end, it asks questions about, the first story, ask a few questions, second story, and no one ever gets them all right. Some people might get 2 or 3 correct. And those are, they're things that are competing for your attention, auditory and visual. If you add motor skills to any of that, then it becomes even more complicated. So once you understand the limitations, then you can better apply the lesson. If I know that there is no way I can multitask, and I frame myself, which I did for years, as I'm a great multitasker, all that does, it invites people to keep dumping on you. Right? Oh, you're good at multitasking. Here's one more for you. Here's one more for you. Here's one more for you. Right?
While you're at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, since you're so good at it, let me give you some more. Right? And once you understand that, look, wait a minute, I can do this for you really well done, or I can do this for you really well done, or you can get 2 half-assed products, right? So once you define the limitation, once you admit that there's a limitation, then you can define it, and it becomes a tool to say, look, I'm going to give 100% focus to task A for an hour. I'm going to take a 15-minute break. I'm going to give 100% concentration to task B for an hour. And what I learned over the years is that I was able to complete the task much faster with a much better output than when I was trying to do them all at the same time. So that was a very important lesson for me to learn about multitasking. And the part about it being a myth, I've did some research on that, and multiple sources cite that as it's a biological improbability that we can multitask as well as we think. The research actually points the other way, to microtasking, where you're doing, changing from task to task very, very quickly.
Tasking or something similar.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I turn the radio down to find the address, right?
I know my wife. Every time I do that, she's like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing it?" Like, I gotta think. I used your lesson with when I was reading it. It just so happens that I have a virtual assistant. So Brooke
Oh, nice.
created CanopySolutions.com, creative Canopy Solutions with an S.com.
Mhm.
So Brooke was helping another client, and this client was trying to get her to do so many different things at the same time. And I just said, "Hey, Brooke, just," and I used your book on this one. I said, to ask them, do we do two half-assed things, or do I do one thing to completion? And do I, truly just focus on the one thing? Which one's more important to you? And so to put it in his, ball in his court, what's
Mhm.
more important to you? And it worked. She was able to get a nice solid scope, and he stuck to the scope. And so
And
she,
the beauty of it is that, we tend to think, from the consultant standpoint, right? We tend to think, man, my client's going to be upset if I tell them no. And sometimes they might be, but they would be more upset if you don't give a good product that they paid for. So I think, I've tested, I've never had a situation where the client said, nope, you're not good because you're unwilling to do, a ridiculous amount of work in a unreasonable amount of time. If I go to them honestly and say, look, you've requested this of me and I can do that for you within this time frame, then I can move on to this one. Or you tell me which one takes priority, like the example you get, and it works. Most of the time, they will say, you know what, let's focus on this one first. And now you can deliver what they want happily, right? I've never had a client that took business away from me because they felt that I couldn't do it.
yeah.
They're already my client. They know I can do the work. I'm just framing the delivery of that work.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, that was a great lesson, and I was able to use it immediately. It just
I'm
happened
glad
that
if it
Brooke was
helps one
going through
person,
that,
right? So
and it helped her. She framed it that way, and the client made the decision, and it made her life a little bit easier too. So,
awesome.
Mr. Floor says it's not my job.
Yeah.
It's and oh,
Yeah.
excuse me, I am
I
not.
am not my job. Yeah.
I am not my job. And someone in the US, I don't know if it's all over since this is international, but some people in the US, once anyone asks about, hey, uh, tell me about yourself, usually the first thing that starts out is, well, I'm a safety consultant, or,
Yeah.
I just do safety or whatever.
Yeah.
Usually it's what you do, not who you are. I'm a
Correct.
husband, I'm a father of two children, and full-time RVer, stuff like
The
that. That's
interesting stuff,
later.
right? The
Yeah,
interesting stuff, the really cool stuff about a person, right? Because
yeah,
and it's funny because that it's not just that people say what they do, is that is the way we answer. I am a safety consultant. You're telling the world that that's your persona, that's who you are, and we are so much more than that. Every person is a universe. I am far more interesting as a dad, as a band booster, as a backyard mechanic, as a husband, as someone that loves to vacation, as a Puerto Rican, as there are so many dimensions to me that are far more interesting than filling an audit form. you know, um, but
and
we
amateur
frame
chef
ourselves.
too. You got to make sure you put in the amateur chef.
Amateur chef, yeah, I love cooking and eating, right? So, but there's so many things that I like, that I enjoy, that make my life beautiful, and the hyper focus on career and what I do for a living, becoming the persona that I was, that was again one of those things that frames everything else. If that's who I am, then taking on all this stress is necessary to perform as that person or that role. So once you change the frame and say, look, I am a father. Am I dedicating time to being a father? I am a husband. Am I dedicating time to being a husband? Or is all of my time going to being a safety professional? Because that's how I have framed my personality and what I've based everything that I do around. And I learned myself that when I started framing myself as those other parts of me, they started demanding the time away from other things that were important but not critical, right? I can be a burger flipper at McDonald's tomorrow, and I'm still a dad, and I'm still a husband, and I'm still a son, and I still like everything else. So that shouldn't be the one thing that defines me. Has it allowed for a great career and the ability to provide for? Absolutely, and I love it, and I enjoy what I do as work. But it's not the only thing that I am, and it doesn't define everything that I am. And I think once I learned that, it really helped me connect better with those other parts of my life that make life what it is. It makes work worth it, not the other way around.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's a nice little connection portion when you truly could say, the things that you value or the things that light you up as opposed to your job. People connect with you a little bit more too.
Yeah.
So it helps. Lesson 5, which is a tough one to even admit, a tough one for you to, as a person, when you come to the realization that your decisions and everything else is it will hurt the ones you love.
Yeah.
And coming to, sometimes you're okay letting yourself down, but when you really letting down the family, then you're like, hold on, I gotta rephrase or reframe how I'm doing this. So tell us about lesson 5.
Yeah, that, like I said, that's the most painful one, but that's the one that really matters. We tend, when you're stressed and people come to you and say, "This isn't good. You don't look well." We tend to react defensively. What's me? Leave me alone. Right? Um, I'm not hurting anyone else. And the reality is, we are. By not being present, by bringing the stress home, by and my experience, right? I would get home after a crappy week, and you know not on purpose, right? No one wants to hurt their family on purpose. But everything was just my fuse at that point was so short, my energy was so depleted at that point, that anything was an excuse for an argument. Anything. um, Whether it was real or perceived. And 90% of the time, if I'm honest, it was me just looking for a way to vent. And whatever got in my way first, that would get it. And it was never, I've never been physically violent with anyone in my life. It was more of a leave me alone, or not connecting, or rough wording, or curt sentences, rather than how are you, how was your day, right? So little things would become, you know a drop would become a puddle out of nowhere. um, and that ultimately, right, so what I started to see was my wife was being distant. My son was afraid to come talk to me. um, and this one pulls at the heart, right? So if I choke up, I apologize. Um, so it's one of those things that you, as a person, you know I work, and I joke around with this. If it wasn't for my wife and kid, I'll be a beach mom because I love the beach, and as long as I made enough money to have a burger and a beer at the end of the day, I'll be happy. But I have people that depend on me, right? And I go to work every day because I want to provide for them, and not just the money side. I want to provide a good, happy life. And when I started seeing that me coming home wasn't good, me getting home from work wasn't a happy moment, it created stress for everyone else.
Yeah.
That hurt. I mean, that really hurt, because man, I'm out there, I'm busting my butt, I'm working hard all day every day, and I get home and it's like everyone's scared. No one
Mm,
wants to say anything. Everyone's afraid of talking because they don't know how I'm going to react.
yeah.
And looking in the mirror and saying, you're being an asshole, you deserve it, right?
Yeah.
That moment is brutal, because we don't want to admit that, right? We want to always be the hero of the movie, right? You never want to be the villain. um, but I had to look at myself honestly and say, look, what am I actually bringing to the table that is
Yeah.
causing this environment around me, right? It can't be my dad always told me, look, if no one likes you, you are the one denominator, right? If one person doesn't like you, it may be that person, but if no one likes you, you know, what's the
That's
common denominator, right?
yeah,
Um, so I had to look at myself and say, look, if I'm not showing up in the way that or if I'm not being perceived in the way that I think I'm showing up, then maybe I'm not showing up in that way.
yeah,
And it forced me to kind of look inside and I say, all of these lessons, I still engage with them every single day. I mean, I'm 56 years old. Um, I'm not gonna change overnight, right? So
yeah.
sometimes I show up a little barky, and again, my wife will go like, go read your book, right? So now she's got a weapon, right? Um,
Yeah, that's
so
true.
but it
Good
helps me
thing.
reframe.
Fine.
So
My day is just fine.
so
Uh,
I think, like I said, I mean, the book was really a way for me to put down into words the things that I went through that helped me turn some of these things around.
yeah,
Um, and just put them out there because I felt alone many, many times um, in this process, right? Like I was discovering these things about me, but then I wasn't talking to anyone. Um, and then as I started working on the book, I reached out to friends and said, "Hey, I'm working on this book. I want you to read the draft. Give me your opinion." And they
mhm,
looked at me and said, like, "Dude, I'm right there with you." But I didn't know that about them, and they didn't know that about me because we all felt alone.
yeah.
So
No one
that,
shares.
yeah, it's like no one's checking in on you. So it's like, that's what I wanted the book to do. Is that, look, if someone reads and it goes like, that's me too, right? So let's go share it with other people because there may be people very, very close to you that are in the same boat that you have no idea
Yeah,
because they're going through that internally, within themselves as I was, or as you may be. So the book was really meant as a, hey, here's what worked for me. It's not a prescription. It's not a program. It's not a, hey, at the end of this, all your problems are going to be solved. No, not at all. It's a way to here's some things that helped one person that went through this, and if it might help you, then I hope it does. Right? That's it.
yeah. No, it really did, and just really, really thank you so much for taking on this challenge to write this book and to not only get it out there, self-published, and making sure that people could see and feel. Because the seeing part is the exercise that you give us at the back, and to write things out. Your bonus lesson. I don't know if I should give away the bonus lesson. Maybe you got to go out there and get the book, but it organically the bonus lesson made the podcast, but you don't know it.
To be
So
continued. Yeah.
to be continued, yeah. So
But
no,
I will say this. So I am working on a follow-up book.
yes,
I just have an outline right now, and it's what happens next, right? So you've identified these things. Um, Now you have a plan. How do you work that plan? And it's again, like everything else, it's a work in progress within myself. So it's taking a little while to write it because I'm figuring some of it out as I go. But it will be just as personal and just as um, from the heart as this one.
excellent. Now tell everybody how to reach out to you, how to make sure that you they stay connected with you, where to find you, any socials that you want to share with us. Just please go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my website, you've been gracious enough to add it down there in the scroll. So it's thebilingualsafetyguy.com. You can email me at jorge.torres at thebilingualsafetyguy. You can look up bilingual safety or the bilingual safety guy on the different socials. I never remember which one's which. I think Instagram is bilingual safety and Facebook is the bilingual safety guy. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me under my name. You can also find, the Bilingual Safety Guy as its own page on LinkedIn. Um, and reach out. I'd love if you read the book. I'd love to hear your perspective on it. Reach out, send me an email, send me a text. Let me know what you thought and if it connected with you. Um, if you have any suggestions or any comments, any stories that you want to share, one of the things that I would love to get out of this is to build a community that is willing to help support each other. Um, as people that are trying to unburden themselves from the stress that they don't want to carry anymore.
Wow. Yes. Jorge, thank you so much for being part of the show today. I've just learned
Thank
so
you,
much
Sheldon. I appreciate it.
about you. I'm glad that we actually had this time together. We never really had the opportunity to talk before, so this is awesome to really get to know you a little bit more. And everyone out there, I would encourage you, just go on the website, go to Amazon and purchase the Unburdened 5 Honest Lessons from a Recovering Stress Junkie. And honestly, this was really fun. Thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank you, Sheldon. You have a great trip.
All right. Thank you.
That's a wrap for today's safety show. Remember, safety isn't just about hard hats and caution signs. It's about business smarts too. Thanks for joining us on the Safety.
Safety FM.
All right. I had to skip it, but so it is